Okay, welcome home. In the first episode, I talked about doing an episode exclusively on planning. Now that the house is nearing completion, I thought this would be a good time to go ahead and talk about that.
When we started this process, we knew we had a really good idea of what we wanted in our forever home. We did start out thinking about building a house. We'd been looking for years at houses and land, mostly looking at old houses, thinking we'd like a historical home or a fixer-upper. The last 2 years we got serious and we're really looking and almost bid on a few, but nothing really seemed to fit the bill.
Right, there was always some deal breaker that just didn't work for us, and we actually found one that we thought we really liked and we missed out due to timing. After that, I went and just did a land search just for the hell of it to see what would come up. This property came up and it met 100% of our must-haves.
First of all, with a little over 10 acres, it's very private. It's all wooded with a cool creek down at the bottom for the dogs to splash around in. It has the availability of high-speed internet and was really no further from shopping and interstates than our current house. I fell in love with it right away and talked Suzette into putting the offer in.
Now that we had the land, it was time for the real work to start. We already had a pretty good idea of what our must-haves, want-to-haves, like-to-haves would look like. So we started looking at magazines, plan books, going to open houses, looking at every house we drove by for ideas on what we want our layout to look like.
So a couple of things we knew for sure as we were coming into this. One is that we didn't want to build just another tract home that you could find anywhere. The second is we wanted a house we could grow old in, so first floor living was an absolute must when we started the design process.
The master bedroom, the kitchen and family room, the dining room and den area, and finally the laundry room all had to be on the main floor.
Once we worked out our must-haves list, it was time to decide what architectural style was the right one for us, as it would have a big impact on our design. I liked cottages and farmhouses. Skip being more practical, like ranches, really wanted one-floor living, or he had an affinity for craftsmen. We both wanted a timeless design. We wanted it to use space very well, and we wanted it to have a lot of character. So we both came to the same conclusion that a craftsman bungalow was the style for us.
The American craftsman style of architecture really came into being around the turn of the last century, around the 1900s. It was in response to the more fussier Victorian style, and the Victorian style really led with aesthetics. The craftsman bungalow really led with function first, so it tried to make the most use of the space. Traditionally speaking, craftsmen were a little bit smaller, a little bit easier to maintain. This made them really wildly popular with hardworking homeowners all the way up through probably the 1930s.
Skip won me over to the craftsman style. After all, a craftsman is just a cottage called a bungalow. Many of us had grandparents who lived in these original craftsman homes, and we remember them with some nostalgia. While we don't want to recreate our grandparents' home, we do want to capture some of the fantastic features and character from this time frame.
Much like the originals, our craftsman design was centered around lots of large porches, a central prominent fireplace, lots of natural light, and natural finishes. Every detail is considered when you're doing this, really right down to the doorknobs. So there's no wasted space in a craftsman. There's no formal living rooms or parlors that rarely get used. Every bit of space is family-friendly, usable space.
In a craftsman, every area is considered. Instead of having just hallways, for example, passageways have built-ins into the walls.
The trick is really not over-designing. As we were touring neighborhoods and touring houses when we were trying to figure out the design, we went through some neighborhoods that are doing new modern craftsmen, and there was some truly god-awful stuff in those neighborhoods. People that would combine 6 different colors on the front of their house: stone, brick, natural wood, lap siding, board and batten, shingles, all on the same facade. Then you add to that, you go inside the house and everybody's trying to be Joanna Gaines and put shiplap everywhere. They just really overdid the design on those, so we're real conscious about not doing that.
A craftsman isn't about details for the sake of details. It's about using architectural elements and details to define spaces and to make the best use of smaller spaces. There are modern touches in our house that wouldn't have been present in the original craftsman design. like kitchen island, attached garage, walk-in closet, open floor plans. But Skip and I think that the attention to detail in our house will bring you back to the timeless style of our grandparents' houses.
Yeah, once we knew what we wanted, now it was time to actually start designing. Suzette would flip through magazines and she'd pull out a design and she'd say, here's what needs to change, and I would draw it up. And honestly, most of them never made it off the scrap heap rather. But, eventually we finally found a contender.
This is the first one that we really like the look of. The problem with this one is it was only about 1,200 square feet on the main floor, and we really just didn't have enough space to get everything done that we wanted to do. This next one had plenty of space and was laid out better. Its problem is that we just couldn't get the laundry room and bathroom to work at the back of the house no matter how hard we tried to arrange it. Interestingly, this is the first appearance of the nearly final layout of the butler's pantry and the kitchen. Although there's nothing craftsman about this exterior, its floor plan is actually the closest cousin to where we ended up. Drop the 2 bedrooms on the right and mirror the design, and you're pretty close to what the first draft of our current plan looked like. The first version of our final plan was close, but it still had some fatal flaws. We had fixed the bathroom issue, but the kitchen and living room were going to be a cave with almost no natural light. And if you didn't park in the garage, there was no easy way to get groceries from the driveway to the kitchen. Suzette came up with the idea of rotating the mudroom and garage 90 degrees and tacking them onto the end of the house. This had finally solved all our floor plan issues. What you see here is our final floor plan. It took us about 4 or 5 months to get to this point.
From the time I first laid eyes on the property till today, it's been about 18 months, and it's been quite a ride. It's been exciting, stressful, a lot more expensive than I thought it was going to be. But, we're almost to the finish line. I think it's all going to be worth it.
Stay tuned, we're almost done.